Hey guys, it's Bailey. Welcome back to the channel and thanks so much for tuning in to a video that's going to cover some things that just didn't work out for me. These are products that just, for whatever reason that we'll get to, I didn't find lived up to the hype or didn't work as well as I had heard they did, or just don't work as well as some other products that I like. That's not to say they aren't totally functional, that somebody else might not like them. Some of these are pretty new, so they will actually go to friends and family who might get some good out of them. But in terms of what I would recommend to you guys and what I recommend you spend your money on, these are not necessarily it. So that's kind of the gist behind these videos. You get the drill. I've done these before. Let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing I want to talk about, I actually already did a review on these along with a bunch of other stuff from e.l.f. and I'll link that video, either click the I or description box below. But I've already told you I don't like these, and a couple things that I'll talk about in this video I already have. And in the event you missed those videos though, I figure it's nice to have it in one consolidated things that aren't working out for me video. Some other things that I'm talking about though are new to me. I mentioned them here on the channel, but I just don't want to do a dedicated review where I'm going to say womp womp, you know, figure it's just easiest to round them all up here. So first products from e.l.f. These are the No Budge Shadow Sticks. I think e.l.f. makes some amazing cream eyeshadows, namely the smudge pots, I think is what they're called. Those are the best cream shadow maybe ever. I wish they had a wider shade selection. That would be like, put them at the top of the list. But in terms of cream shadows, those way overshadow these. I love the idea of a good stick eyeshadow, but these I couldn't get to work without majorly priming my eyes and then going in and setting them with a powder shadow. And there are just so many other eye pencils out there. In fact, I have a video all about that too, my top 5 favorite, if you want to check that out as well. But there are just so many others out there that there are really one and done shadow products for me where I just apply, no primer, and I blend and go. That's what I'm looking for in a shadow stick, and these did not give that to me. So luckily they didn't break the bank. It's a relatively affordable mistake to make, but in the event you're considering these, I recommend avoiding them altogether and save the money. This next one is another relatively new one for me. It is the Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Concealer. Lots of people raved about this, saying it was a dupe or Tarte Shape Tape, and while I initially liked it, as I wore it more and paid attention to how it wore throughout the day, I noticed that it was just wearing away way too quickly, even when set with a powder, wearing away too quickly in the innermost part of my under eye area. Maybe it's to do with allergy season, I'm just rubbing my eyes more frequently now. But I have concealers that can withstand that kind of wear and tear, and so while I do love that this is more affordable, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work for me. So I had to eventually switch back to my Estee Lauder waterproof double wear waterproof. It's a big long name. Go check out my recent favorites video if you're interested, but this is not working out for me. Next up is a product that a lot of you guys wanted to see a review on or just wanted more info on it. It is a colored hairspray from the brand Hush. I talked about this in my Sephora haul. It's their airbrush spray in the shade Malibu Pink, and I thought, I personally like the idea of having temporary fashion colors in my hair, but it can be a challenge as a brunette that they just don't show up. Hairsprays make your hair crunchy, yada yada. The description of this on the Sephora website made it super appealing, and they actually had this shown on both blonde and like a mid-tone brunette, maybe a little bit lighter than me, but it actually showed up, which I was super impressed by. So it sold me, I got it, I was excited to use it. The first time I used it, I got about halfway, I guess I don't even know how far through the can I got, but about halfway of applying it through my hair. I started at the tips and started to work my way up, getting kind of patchy. I noticed that there's no more product coming out of the can. Like, it still sprays, but there's no product coming out of the can. In fact, I hope this is the can. Yeah, see, there's nothing but air coming out of here. Even though, you know, as I hold this and tilt it around, I can feel the liquid in there. So the nozzle stopped working. I contacted Sephora customer service because, try as I may, I couldn't find any sort of contact for, or website or social media for the brand Hush, so I'm not really sure about the brand background. But I was able to reach out to Sephora customer service, and their solution was to send a new can. I thought if it's a consistent problem, they have a solution that you might be able to use to unclog it, but they just went ahead and sent a new can, which was great, and the customer service was awesome. So then when I get the second can, I start applying it. I had actually curled my hair beforehand, because one thing that I noticed as I was trying this for the first time was that it might be helpful to have my hair pre-styled, like curl it and then spray it over the style, rather than spray and then go and try and curl it and it gets on your fingers as you're kind of, you know, brushing and doing all that kind of stuff. So I had my hair curled, but as I was spraying it, to get the kind of pigment, I had to go over many times, or I'd get really close, but then the wet texture, I mean, it makes your hair wet and then you lose your style. And at the end of, you know, I was able to get like enough pigment on my hair to feel good about the situation. It wasn't quite as pigmented as I wanted, which is another kind of complaint that I have, especially after seeing the pictures on the website. But once I got it to where I wanted, the curls had fallen out, and so I had to recurl my hair anyway. It's all over your hands, super easy to wash off. I mean, don't worry about that. But yeah, it's all over your hands. I was wearing a black top at the time, and so you could see this like pinky purple iridescence all in that black top. Washes out. It's, you know, very short-lived, but it does, I mean, you have to like be wearing a towel or something as you apply to make sure that it doesn't get everywhere. So I went ahead and restyled my hair. It couldn't quite get back into the shape it once was. It's kind of like a dry shampoo consistency where it leaves a film, like a dry powdery film on your hair. I mean, the actual pigment itself, which makes sense, but it does make your hair a little bit harder to style afterwards. And then as it wore on throughout the night, I just noticed that like I had a crossbody purse on, and anywhere it touched, it was just, I mean, it's still like iridescent purple to this day, you know, because it just wore off on there. And then when I woke up the next morning, I hadn't washed my hair or anything, and it was totally out of my hair. I mean, I don't know where it went, because there wasn't anything on the pillow. I don't know where it went, but it definitely wasn't in my hair. So it's very, very temporary. I do recommend that you have lighter hair, because even though the before and afters on the Sephora website looked like it would show up in kind of deeper, darker brunette hair, not so much. And then you just have to make sure that you are totally fine holding it way far away and reapplying multiple layers so that you don't get your hair damp and ruin your style ahead of time. And all in all, for what I think was 24, 25 bucks, that was just way too much work for me to get color that I wasn't super happy with in my hair. Long story short, I probably should have just done a dedicated review on this guy, but I wouldn't recommend it, unfortunately. It's fun in the right situation, right circumstances, but for that kind of price tag, I was really hoping for something like a higher end hair product and not what is, you know, ultimately kind of a costumey kind of hairspray. In fact, I think maybe costumey hairsprays might be a little bit more pigmented. So that is that. Next on to something else I talked about in that same Sephora haul. It is the Touch in Soul Metalist High Shine Bouncy Cream Shadow Palette. I had talked about not really liking it in that haul video, but said I would give it another go just to make sure, you know, I tried it every which way to make sure I wasn't missing out on something that, you know, just wasn't immediately evident. Not so much. I'm just not happy with the pigmentation. These are all super glittery, so to me a lot of these look like blush and highlight shades. So even if you aren't happy with the pigmentation on your eyes, you might be able to use them on your face. They're just too glimmery, shimmery for me personally, so this, you know, again, it could work out for somebody, but this was just not my cup of tea. And they didn't have great lasting power on the eyes. It's, again, you really have to prime, otherwise they will sink in and crease in your eyes, so it's not a one and done like maybe a ColourPop might be for me. So yeah. Couple more drugstore eyeshadow palettes to talk about. The first one is, again, one that I recently mentioned in my Ulta haul. I was excited about this because it has this gorgeous, by the way, the name of the palette is the Maybelline Lemonade Craze palette. I was so drawn by this color palette because it's like bright, a couple of standout brighter shades, and this primary yellow called the actual Lemonade Craze shade mixed with berries and neutrals. It just seemed like such a fun and refreshing color palette to come from the drugstore or anywhere really. But I hadn't had a whole lot of time to play with it when I talked about it in that Ulta haul, and I said I wanted to do like a dedicated tutorial specifically using the yellow. The yellow is just not as great as I had hoped. I hadn't used it over primer when I was wearing it in the previous video, and I have tried it with more substantial primers. I'm wearing it today actually all over my lid, over the lid primer from Smashbox in white. It's not a bright, bold primary yellow. If you don't mind that, it's totally fine. Then this might be a good palette for you, but then it's kind of like, well, then you get a bunch of neutrals, beautiful neutrals. The palette, or the shadow quality here is super soft, very pigmented, but it is just then kind of another neutral palette with a berry pop. And I feel like you could use neutrals you might already have in your collection and then get something really cool looking, like the not Maybelline, Makeup Geek just launched her Power Pigments, which I have not tried, but I've heard good things about, seen amazing swatches, and to me, you could pick up the primary yellow in that collection and pair it with neutrals you might already own and just be able to recreate this palette. That and then even a berry from the Makeup Geek, or red, or whatever we're calling this shade. But you get my point. Without the two, or even this one yellow shade, this really just becomes kind of a neutral palette. A good neutral palette, but not necessarily one that I don't think a lot of us might already be able to recreate on our own. And last up, this one really is not a fail. It just is not right for me. It is the Neutrogena and Kerry Washington collab eyeshadow palette. And I talked about this again in my recent Ulta haul. I think the shadow quality is great. I really really am impressed with this coming from Neutrogena, but what I'm not ecstatic about is the range of shadows. You can see here you get a, you know, light frosty kind of eggshell and a deep taupey brown, but then there are these 3 shades here in the middle that while they might look distinct when you swatch them on your finger or on your arm or something, and when I was using them, and I've used it a couple times now, they just look almost identical on the eye to me. And so I just really wish this palette would have given a more dynamic spectrum of shades or maybe more contrast in the shades, because as it stands now, I feel like you almost get 3 instead of 5 shades. Again though, the shadow quality is amazing, so if you feel like you are a taupe enthusiast and you can't have enough taupe shades, perfect one for you, super affordable, from the drugstore, high quality shadows. But if you're looking for kind of an all-in-one palette that gives you some options, some contrast, things like that, even with the finishes, these are all satin finishes, no mattes, no shimmers, no anything like that, you might want to look elsewhere just because this I don't think is going to give you quite the versatility you might want in an eyeshadow palette. So those are all of the more recent products that just aren't quite working out for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these or any others that you might have come across and you think would be helpful to share for everybody else out there. Anything we can avoid just flat out doesn't work or just doesn't work for you, let us know in the comments down below. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.